smash hit mobile game app Pokemon Go has only been out for a few days, but it's already got millions following their smartphones to the most random places, and police fear possibly into harm's way.
And I want to thank them so much, the show's producers, for helping to bring Hamilton to the White House.
What is a Hatchimal? Funny you should ask.
Boating McBoatface, well, that's a lesser-known Shakespearean character from the Scottish play, I believe, the McBoatface clan.
Hello, my name's Stephen Morris, and welcome to Songs in the Key of, a podcast about songs. These might be old songs, new songs, or middle-aged songs. Anything that takes my fancy, really. Sometimes these shows will be themed around an idea, a person, a genre, or some other concept. Other times they will simply reflect my latest obsessions, my new favourite bands, those songs I can't get out of my head. If you were doom-scrolling your way through social media a couple of months back, it's entirely possible you came across posts from people saying and showing what they were doing in 2016. There are also posts by journalists and writers investigating why so many people are posting and showing what they were doing. The TLDR on this is that this was the last year when things were actually okay. Before Brexit, before Trump, well, before President Trump, before COVID, before cost of living crises, before the war in Ukraine, before Elon Musk destroyed Twitter, before AI made us doubt reality, before pretty much everything that now makes us want to scream every time we are forced to engage with the outside world. Far be it from me to leap onto a bandwagon, albeit very, very late, but what if we had an episode of this podcast all about that time 10 years ago, when you didn't have to take out a mortgage to buy a bottle of tomato ketchup, cinema goers were getting obsessed with comic book cinematic universes, and Ukraine's Olga Liashchuk crushed 3 watermelons with her thighs in just 14.65 seconds. Welcome then to Songs in the Key of 2016. If you follow me on Instagram at Songs in the Key of, you might well have seen that I've been listening to my albums in alphabetical order for a while now. Obviously, there are very important rules to follow with such a project. Bands and artists are arranged alphabetically, with albums subfiled in chronological order. So Blur's albums will be listened to from Leisure through Modern Life is Rubbish, Parklife, The Great Escape, Blur, 13, Think Tank, The Magic Whip, and The Ballad of Darren, with a best of and remix album Bustin' and Droning slotted in at the appropriate juncture. Bands whose names begin with The will be filed assuming no definite article. So it's Beatles The, not The Beatles, Stone Roses The, not The Stone Roses, and The, not The. You need to be very careful filing that one away. Similarly, solo artists are arranged alphabetically by surname, not forename. So that means I'll be listening to a few albums by Smith Elliott, then folk artist Smith John, and then move on to Horses by Smith Patty before re-familiarising myself with the whole oeuvre of Smith's The, after which I will leave all kinds of smithery behind and proceed with an album by Smog and a clutch of long players by Smoke Fairies The. Some might say I'm a little bit obsessed and musically anal, but I suspect if you're listening to this podcast, you might well be similarly afflicted. Despite starting this arduous project back in the summer, I think, of 2024, I'm still in the early B's of my albums. Well, I have taken a few weeks off every now and then to listen to different things. It turns out that sometimes you may not want to listen to 5 Bat for Lashes albums back to back, no matter how good each individual creation of Natasha Khan is. A few weeks ago, having completed listening to all my Beatles albums, I moved on to an album by a Scottish singer-songwriter called Adam Beattie, who is, quite frankly, a ruddy marvel. In 2016, Adam Beattie released an album called The Road Not Taken. I bought my copy of it directly from him when he played the Rochester Sweeps Festival in 2019 on board the Kitty, a sailing barge which played host to some amazing intimate gigs back in the day. The Road Not Taken is a mix of folk, singer-songwriter whimsy and cafe jazz. shambolic sounding rhythms that sound like everything has been precariously but brilliantly balanced in place. My favourite song from the album is I'm on Your Side, about which I wrote with nigh on hyperbolic praise on my Instagram post about the album. It's a gorgeous song, both in lyrics and sound. Lyrically, it's an elegant, poignant treatise on the need for peace, love and understanding in the world. The only war that's worth the blood and all the marching in the mud is one where neither side can deny they've made a better world for you and I. Put yourself in the other's shoes. You'll see when you win, another will lose. Fortune will come and go like the tide. I'm on your side. Musically, it's rather magical because it's in that fairly rare of time signatures 5/4, 1 2 3 4 5, 1 2 3 4 5, 1 2 3 4 5, 1 2 3 4 5. Most famously used on Dave Brubeck's Take 5, of course, and the theme tune to Mission Impossible. Opening with groaning noises on strings, the staggering sound of the 5/4 timing slowly emerges out of the mire, building with confidence as it proceeds, throwing in a modulation into a new key for a bit of fun as it goes along. It clatters around, screeching and playing with the whole idea of what rhythms and tones are all about. It's a thing of absolute beauty, and it goes precisely like this.
The only war that's worth the blood and all the marching in the mud is one where neither side can deny they've made a better world for you and I. Put yourself in another's shoes. You'll see when you win, another will lose, and fortune will come and go like the tide. I'm on your side. Like the Chinese emperor's famous plight, that he'd rid his enemies overnight. And in the morning his council could not believe to see his foes come round for tea. Put yourself in another's place. You'll find yourself easier to face. And in your foe you may confide. I'm on your side.
Perhaps we should have seen it as a sign. The starman who prophesied to a disbelieving Jeremy Paxman just how significant the internet would be passed away in early 2016, and thus the world began to unravel. As a parting gift, he offered us Black Star, his final album laden with 7 densely packed songs that combined his unfaltering love of playing saxophone with drum and bass rhythms and that distinctive but now clearly world-weary voice. The final song on the album, and so the final thing we really hear from David Bowie, is a song called I Can't Give Everything Away. It's a song about endings and saying goodbye, a heartbreaking ballad of a song, pure poetry, filled with meandering sax and guitar solos and relentless drumming. I know something's very wrong. The pulse returns, the prodigal sons, the blackout hearts, the flowered news, with skull designs upon my shoes. This then is I Can't Give Everything Away by David Bowie.
Something's very wrong. The pulse returns for prodigal sons, with blackouts hearts, with flowered news, with skull designs upon my shoes. I can't give everything. I can't give everything.
Tinfoil Boy by Jamie T is a dark, twisted tale of drug-taking, despair, loneliness and wanting to escape. It's a brutal, throbbing song, visceral and chaotic. It was, according to Mr. T himself, heavily influenced by the sound of Rage Against the Machine, and though there's no rapping a la Zach de la Rocha, you could quite easily be forgiven for thinking that Tom Morello might have just popped into the studio with his guitar.
Use the love to keep you here. You break your heart to make sure that I'm aware. Sometimes you feel like a trip, like a hangman word no one ever gives. The tinfoil boy, 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 boy.
In 2016, Conor O'Brien, aka Villagers, released a beautiful album called Where Have You Been All My Life? By this point, he had already released 3 conventional studio albums, 2010's groundbreaking Becoming a Jackal, 2013's Awayland, and 2015's Darling Arithmetic. Arguably, Where Have You Been All My Life was a kind of placeholder until the emergence of the next Villagers album proper, 2018's The Art of Pretending to Swim. Only that would be to do this 4th album a supreme injustice. It's a kind of a best of, a greatest hits from the first 3 albums, only it's so much more than that, a re-recording of a selection of songs, stripped back, acoustic. O'Brien's voice, a guitar, minimum accompaniment. Songs that were already heart-on-sleeve displays of vulnerability become something even more tender, poignant and heartbreaking. If you don't believe me, just listen to That Day, which originally appeared on the Villagers' debut. The sparsity of the version found on this acoustic album will melt you. But the song I'm going to play for you isn't actually a song that appeared on a previous Villagers album, because it's not actually a Villagers song. Conor O'Brien can do a fine line in covers. It's a matter of lasting regret that the Freebie Mojo CD featuring that musician's take on Neil Young's Old Man is now languishing in a landfill site somewhere. But I can at least seek some kind of solace in the fact that the final song on Where Have You Been All My Life is a phenomenal version of Glenn Campbell's classic Wichita Lineman, written by Jimmy Webb. From the warmth of the introduction plucked out on a bass, you know you're going to be in for a treat. There's simply no need for the pulsating Morse code beeps of the original here. Instead, O'Brien brings us the bare bones of the song, a smooth, delicate vocal and minimal accompaniment. Piano chords fall like raindrops, the guitar is barely audible, and then the Bacharacchian horn comes in with a solo, and it's just, well, words fail me. Just listen to this.
And I need you more than want you, and I want you for all time. And the Wichita lineman is still on the line.
more than want you, and I want you for all time. And the Wichita lineman is still on the line.
It's the perfect combination. A music video featuring stop-frame animation of figurines recalling characters from Camberwick Green, Trumpton and Chigley, the darkly twisted themes of ritual killing from The Wicker Man, and Radiohead. You can pretty much take or leave the rest of the tracks on Radiohead's Moon-Shaped Pool from 2016, and I do tend to leave them, but that striking, incessant rhythmed album opener Burn the Witch is a phenomenal piece of intense songwriting. Those strings, those stabbing, relentless strings, they're at once nightmarish and alluring. Looking at the lyrics 10 years later with the news of ICE agents killing civilians on the streets of Minneapolis, the lines of the song seem strangely prescient. Stay in the shadows, cheer at the gallows. This is a roundup. This is a low-flying panic attack. It's bleak, miserable, and therefore very much for these times. There's quite a history of musicians creating innovative ways of playing guitar following injury, possibly even the loss of a finger or two. The most famous ones that spring to mind are Django Reinhardt, whose distinctive Romany jazz style was at least in part the result of sustaining extensive damage to the ring and little finger on his left hand. See also Black Sabbath's left-handed Tommy Iommi, who lost the tips of his right hand's ring and middle fingers when they were crushed by literal heavy metal during his last day working in a factory. He ended up using homemade thimbles made from fairy liquid bottles to help him play guitar. The modifications necessitated for him to continue playing the guitar led, at least in part, to the heavier, definitive sound of Black Sabbath and heavy metal in general. Not to be outdone by their jazz and metal counterparts, indie and alternative musicians can hold up one Jamie Hintz of The Kills as an example of digitally challenged musicians. In 2013, he got his left hand caught in a car door as it was shut, resulting in the loss of the use of the middle finger. He had to learn to play the guitar in a different way after that. Which is where 2016's album Ash and Ice comes in, the first Kills album to emerge after the middle finger incident. Ash and Ice is a gloriously dirty sounding album. Heavy distortion on Hintz's guitar immediately summons up the sight and smell of dingy, overcrowded alternative venues, cooler than thou haircuts, and craft ale spilt on the floor. Throw in Alison Mosshart's no-nonsense vocals, finding a perfect balance between sultry smoothness and wicked snarliness, and you know you're on to a winner. Heart of a Dog is perhaps my favourite song on the album. It sounds like it's skulking around the back of the bike sheds, fag in hand, while all the goody two-shoes head off into school for double geography. but it's actually a song about the need for love, consistency, and a lasting, meaningful relationship. It's a beautiful, beautiful song about loyalty and love, and it goes exactly like this. Way back on the 41st episode of this here podcast, with a show imaginatively named Songs in the Key of Lately, I featured at the end a triumvirate of songs about very specific places: the Outer Hebrides, the south coast of Essex, and Orkney. The last of these, Orkney, was the source of inspiration for the Magnetic North, a supergroup of musicians made up of Erland Cooper, once of Erland and the Carnival, Hannah Peel, an excellent purveyor of solo electronica and much else, and Simon Tong, once of the Verve, who also played with Blur during Graham Coxon's absence from the band circa Think Tank. The Magnetic North's first album, Orkney, Symphony of the Magnetic North, was a mesmerising portrayal of Erland Cooper's homeland. For their second album, the band turned their attention towards Simon Tong's hometown of Skelmersdale, with an album called Prospect of Skelmersdale. According to the blurb on their Bandcamp page, if Orkney is the musical equivalent of great nature writing, then Prospect of Skelmersdale is somewhere between finely tuned kitchen drama and urban psychogeography. The bizarre thing about the West Lancashire town of Skelmersdale, or Skem as it is affectionately known, is just how much of a hodgepodge of cultures and history it is. It sprang up in 1961 as part of the second wave of new towns, alongside Redditch, Runcorn and Dawley Newtown. The more famous examples of Milton Keynes, Peterborough, Northampton, Warrington and Telford would emerge 6 or 7 years later. Despite the ambition and excitement of a shiny, spangly new town, by the 1980s the cracks were beginning to show, with mass unemployment and economic depression hitting the area hard. An unlikely potential saviour came in the form of all things, the Transcendental Meditation movement, which adopted Skelmersdale as its UK headquarters. It was this mix of new town aspiration, 80s economic ruin, and an influx of people in search for a higher state of consciousness that inspired the Magnetic North to create their second album. Remains of Elmer from this long player is a lingering, poignant and utterly beautiful piece full of dramatic strings and surging sounds. What appears to be a song about transcendental meditation and yogic flying swiftly turns into an elegy for all the hope that had been invested into the new town of Skelmersdale. To complete mastery of the sky, it's not just an inner peace. It radiates profound influence of order and harmony. I know, it's all just a dream to me now. It's heartbreakingly gorgeous. Almost inevitably, there has to be a Medway tune on here somewhere, and we've got to the point in the proceedings where, quite frankly, it has to happen. In 2016, the Senior Service released an album of instrumental music called The Girl in the Glass Case. The whole premise behind the band at this point was to create soundtracks to 1960 movies that never existed. Spy movies, mysteries, crime capers. Medway had formed for this kind of thing before. Back in the mid to late 80s, following the demise of the Prisoners, that band's Jamie Taylor put the organ front and centre of his new band alongside little brother David from the Daggermen, Alan Crockford, also from the Prisoners, and Wolf Howard, the drummer with the Daggermen. Together they created the album The Money Spider, which sought to recreate the magical soundscapes of British cinema from 2 decades previous. The Senior Service features one member who served on the James Taylor Quartet's original lineup, drummer Wolf Howard. 2 of the band members share roots with other JTQ musicians though. The Senior Service's guitarist Graham Day sang and played guitar with the Prisoners alongside Alan Crockford, while the new band's organist Johnny Barker used to play bass alongside David Taylor in the Daggermen. Added to the lineup is the multi-talented Darryl Hartley on bass. Caballo sin nombre, which Google very helpfully informs me is the Spanish for horse with no name, and was also the title of Series 3, Episode 2 of Breaking Bad, apparently, is a richly textured affair full of Dick Dale urgency and mariachi trumpets. It's the kind of thing Quentin Tarantino would snap up in a heartbeat to accompany a gunfight on the silver screen. Believe me when I tell you, you're going to love this. Carrying on with the 60s retro sound, let's turn our collective attention to the transatlantic trio Unloved, made of Kiefer Ciancha and Jade Vincent from Los Angeles and David Holmes from Northern Ireland. In 2016, Unloved released their debut album, and it's awash with beautiful, washed-out sounds, like 60s girl groups heard through the ears of David Lynch. It's not exactly a million miles away from the sound of the Ravenettes, who were at their peak around about a decade previous. I kind of completely forgot about them until I started writing this episode, which is a huge shame, because this is the sort of music you could get completely lost in with a good enough pair of headphones. It's a dark, twisted kind of sound which made it perfect for use on the BBC series Killing Eve. The absolute standout moment from the album, and the one that secured a load of radio play back in the day, was When a Woman Is Around. It's a cynical swipe at masculine dog-eat-dog ideologies, sung by women who seem wryly amused by how being around men can make those men act, well, just a little bit silly. Here then is a snippet of When a Woman Is Around.
I don't pretend to know the ways of the world. A means to an end seems the way. who has the most of whatever's best. All the better. May the best man win. An eye for an eye is the blind man's rule. I wasn't born to follow. I'm nobody's fool. Any other man can soon unsolve. Truth is seldom found when a woman is around.
Michael Kiwanuka grew up in a very middle-class, very white area of London and began his musical career sounded by very middle-class, very white musicians, getting signed to Communion Records alongside the likes of Mumford & Sons, Daughter and the Staves. Here's a snippet of what he once said in an interview with the Irish Examiner. "I've been marketed as a black soul singer, which is perhaps what I am, but I don't feel like that. In my head, where I grew up, I was more used to middle-class white England. That's what I've been around all my life. The fact no black people were coming to my gigs made me realise we're more segregated than we think, even in the kinds of music we listen to. I guess it became a statement. All of this stuff has been going around my head since I was a teenager. The difference in culture, everything. Where I fit in European white society, does colour really matter? It's pretty obvious that certain kinds of records are bought by certain kinds of people without any crossover. I'm sort of in the middle of that. If you're around it your entire life, it weighs on you." In 2016, Kiwanuka released his second album, Love and Hate, which features the song Black Man in a White World. It's a phenomenal song, brilliantly catchy, beautifully soulful, and wonderfully deep in texture and theme alike. It's the sound of Kiwanuka exploring who he is in song, really struggling to find himself amongst all the messages of what other people might expect of him and what he has assumed about himself, all the while searching out for a sense of peace, contentment to know that he is who he is, and that's all okay. It's an absolutely brilliant song.
I've been low, I've been high, I've been sold all my lies. I've got nothing left to play, I've got nothing left to say. I'm a black man in a white world, I'm a black man in a white world, I'm a black man in a white world, I'm a black man in a white. I'm in love, but I'm still sad. I found peace, but I'm not glad. All my nights and all my days, I've been trying the wrong way. I'm a black man in a white world, I'm a black man in a white world, I'm a black man in a white world, I'm a black man in a white.
So there you have it, 10 songs in the key of 2016. If you liked what you heard, you can find a playlist of all the songs featured on this episode on Spotify. Just look for Songs in the Key of 2016. Podcast Protocol pretty much insists that I ask you to like and subscribe to this podcast on the platform of your choice. And if you know anyone who is a particular fan of anti-war songs sung in an unusual time signature, love songs played without the use of a middle finger, or chamber pop indie songs about what happens when the planner's dreams go wrong, be sure to tell them that this podcast could well be right up their street. I'll be back sooner or later with some more songs in the key of something or other else. In the meantime, have a marvellous few days and nights till we meet again.